Hello, I'm Carl Rome with Sherline Products. In this video, we're going to go over some tool setting methods. We have a wood knob that we have for a customer that he wants to make today, and we're going to be center drilling, and boring. It's got a through hole and a counter bore on it. Some of the different methods and different holders. We have a lot of different tool holders. For our chucker lathe, we came up with our gang tool post. Okay, this guy can either be set up this way with tooling sticking out of it like so, or it can be set up this way to be used with turning tools on the front side. When you have a holder like this, okay, if I have drills set up in it like this one is, if I have them set in here, then what I do is I run an indicator across the face of this and get this indicated in dead square. Once that's dead square, then I know that my tools are all sticking out parallel with the axis of the headstock. Okay, this is good for gang tooling when I have a longer table and it has a dedicated spacing between centers of 1.5 inches. So in some situations this works really well. For our application here, the customer that's going to be running this has got a 6-inch cross slide on his lathe. So this is an 8-inch, so he's dealing with 2 inches of less travel. Okay, and I want to be able to get these 3 tools on here in order to run the program. So the first thing we're going to do is, this is our boring bar. This is actually a 3063 high-speed boring bar that we make for our boring head. You can also use it with our 7600 tool post, and you just have to mount it. You'll have to get the tip of the boring tool on center line and then lock it down with a set screw. This is going to be a short tool, and because of that, I'm going to have him mounted in the front T-slot, right about like so. And I've got my number 2 center drill. This is sticking out a little bit longer. Okay, I'm going to mount him on the back T-slot. Okay, with him mounted on the back T-slot, they're sticking out virtually the same length right here. And then I'm going to have my long number 28 drill. Okay, he's definitely going to be mounted on the back T-slot. When I have individual tooling like this, I can alter my spacing. For this one, I want to keep these 2 guys relatively close to allow more space so that I can have this one spaced further away. I want it spaced further away so that when I'm using this one, this drill's not harpooning my chuck or my headstock while this one's actually in the part doing its work. So this is the basic setup I want to get. With these tool posts, these are made out of extrusion, so the outside surfaces are extruded, which means they're plus or minus 10 thousandths. We have it so that if you put it on the table and you actually get it flush or parallel with the front surface or the back surface of the cross line, you're going to be pretty close to being square, but it's not dead on. Okay? For my boring tool, as long as I don't have it at an angle like this to where it's going to be coming into bore and my part's going to start hitting on the back side of the boring bar. Okay, this is exaggerated. As long as I'm square, or as long as I'm parallel with that surface or with that axis or a little bit this way, I'm going to be fine. The other one is this has got a square end on it, so I do want to be pretty square in order to get a square bottom on the end of the bottom of my hole. But this guy gets you in the ballpark if you just line it up by eye. Okay, so I just have it just finger tight right there. These guys, the other reason I'm going to set this up this way is because I can set each tool, get it centered, and see what my relationships are. If I just lock these all down, I'm going to find out the hard way that there's going to be interference somewhere along the line. So the next one is, how do I get my tool post squared up to the center axis of my stock? On the center drill and the drill, it has to be on center line. It has to be parallel with the center line axis of my spindle if it's off to any kind of angle, to any degree, it might start coming into the hole when I tool eye it, but my drill's going to be walking off. It'll actually walk clean out of the part on a deep hole like this. I'll be on center line when I start, and by the time it comes out of the back end here, it'll be considerably off center. So to start off, these guys, we're just going to leave them loose over there. And what I'm going to do is, the first thing is my tool numbers. In my program, this is going to be tool number 4, this is going to be tool number 5, and this is going to be tool number 6. So I'm going to set this one first. I'm going to go into MBI, and I want to tell the computer that I'm working with tool number 6. I'm sorry, yeah, 6. Okay, so T6, M6 is the code I put in, and the screen changes and shows you tool 6, which is a C board. It's a boring bar, but the operation it's doing is a counter board. So the next, I'm going to hit escape to get rid of my MDI window. I'm going to go to jog. I'm on continuous, it's flashing red. And I'm going to jog this tool into what looks like center line on the chuck. So I'm going to get close in the Z, and then I'm going to move in my X. The other one is when I'm on center line, I don't want to be all the way up on my limit switch in my home position. So right now I'm 58 thousandths away from my limit switch in my machine on 0 home. So I might have to move him a little bit further to give myself some play room here. We'll see in a second. Okay, so I've got my chuck open much larger. What I'm going to do is bring it in, and I'm going to clamp on the 3/8 shank of my boring tool. So I'm going to bring it in the Z. And it looks like it can come this way some. Go Z more. Open it up some more. So I'm definitely going to clear. I'm going to jog it in. Right there. I'm almost touching the tool holder right now. And I'm going to start closing the jaws down. And as soon as I feel a touch, there's a touch, I'm going to loosen this guy. So my tool holder is now loose. Okay. And what I'm going to do is chuck up on the actual boring bar right here. So this is the cheater way of doing this. This gets you as close as you can get without indicating it. So this is a way to start and get your stuff dialed in first. So right now it's chucked up on my boring tool. My tool holder is loose. Okay. So right now if I tighten it down, then I open my chuck. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is just move, I'm not going to move the X at all, I'm going to move my Z. Okay, and right now in my X, my tool number 6 is dead on center line with the chuck. So when I actually use this part, I'm going to have to get a tool offset for the actual cutting edge, but for right now I'm going to put this position in as an X0 for this tool holder. So if I go to my tool work offset and I double click on number 6, and on the X axis I put in a diameter of 0 and I click on touch and then save, it just put that number in there. So now I can use that as a reference for this tool. Okay, the next one I'm going to do is going to be my center drill. Another one, as far as this tool goes, another option other than grabbing onto the shank of your tool here, especially if this isn't sticking out far enough, you could always put a piece of 3/8 stock in here and have it stick out further than this and clamp down on your 3/8 stock, or a 3/8 gauge pin, or a 3/8 dowel pin. This is a 1/4 inch. Anything that's 3/8 that's nice and true, stick it in there and you can do the same operation. So on this one, right now I'm going to position it approximately where I want it. And I'm just going to go snug for right now. and just hold it in place. So on my MDI, this is going to be tool number 4. So I'm going to go to MDI. I'm going to punch in T4, M6. So now my computer knows that it's tool 4 that is being used. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to jog this into position. So jog, continuous. That looks pretty good. Now I'm going to come in here, and what I want to do is clamp onto the solid shank area of the center drill. So as I come in, I'm noticing that if I go any further, I'm going to crash my boring tool into the face of the chuck or the jaws. So I'm not going to be able to grab this like I did with the boring tool. So what I'm going to do is replace this with a dowel pin right now that sticks out further. Because all I'm trying to do is acquire an x-axis center line for my offset page. So I'm going to take this guy out, and got a 1/4 inch dowel pin, hardened steel dowel pin. I'm going to stick this in my chuck, and it's sticking out far enough so that I can grab it with a chuck without interfering with my boring tool. As I tighten it down, the chuck down, I'm also spinning the dowel pin that removes any chips or anything that might be on the dowel pin to make sure that it locates properly in the jaws of the chuck. And I'm just going to snug it down. Now I'm going to move back into my Z. And it looks like I'm too close to me. Shift it out a little bit. Okay, now I'm going to go in. Now that amount, I'm getting almost the entire length of the chuck jaws to clamp onto that dowel pin. So I'm going to start closing it down again. And I'm going to see if my jaws are coming close to touching on one side before the other. So the jaws lined up in the back, pretty close. In the front, it looks like it's off just a hair. I'm going to move it just a bit my way. And now I'm going to start closing down again. And that's looking pretty fair there. Now what I'm going to do is loosen this entirely. Okay, so now wherever my chuck grabs onto this, it's going to line it up for me. So that's lined up there. Give it a little spin. I'll just hand tight on this. Okay, check that again. So right now I'm lined up, and I'm going to lock this guy down. Now I'm going to loosen my chuck. I can bring the Z-axis out. Another one, whether I have my pin in this chuck and I'm lining it up with the chuck in my headstock, or I have the pin in the chuck in my headstock and I'm opening this chuck and bringing it onto the pin and clamping it down, either direction it works. And this could either be a chuck or this could be a 1/4 inch collet that's in here. Okay, so either method will work. So right now, my x-axis for tool number 4 is dead on center line with the chuck and the spindle. So I'm going to go to my tool offset page. I'm going to double click on tool number 4. And again, the tool diameter is going to be 0. I'm just going to click touch, save. So right now for tool number 4, that number is dead on center. Okay. The next one, and what I do is I drew a line on my cross leg for where 6 inches would be, so I know what I'm working with for how much room I actually have on my cross line in order for this to work on a 6 inch cross line. So the next one is the spacing here has to be far enough so that, I'll get down a little bit. So that when I've got this part in there and I'm drilling it, I'm spot drilling it, and my tool, my drill right here is not going to hit my chuck or my headstock or my motor bracket. So right now, with that dead on center, I can actually jog this and make sure, and this is further in than I'm going to center drill, but you can see that I've got clearance here. And I can actually move in a bit and still have clearance. So that's looking good right there. Now that I found center line for tool number 4, I'm going to actually take this pin out and put my center drill back in. And it's sticking out as far as I want it. I want to hold on to a good amount of the solid shank of the center drill, but I have it sticking out so that it's comparable lengthwise to my boring tool. And again, spin it while you're tightening it down. And then lock this in place. Okay. All right, the next operation is going to be to touch Z's on here. So these two are set for the x-axis. So the next one I'm going to do is my drill, and I'm going to bring the drill in as close as I can to the chuck without interference here and clamp onto the drill. Okay. So we're going to go x-axis minus. Bring the Z in. I'm going to eyeball it to see. Right now I'm too far this way, so I'm going to go this way. That's looking pretty fair. And I'm going to bring my Z in. And I don't have to worry about crashing anything here. That's pretty good right there. Just close my chuck down onto the drill shank. And it looks like I'm definitely a little bit too close this way. I can go to increment, or step rather, and 10 thousandths per click. That's looking pretty good. Okay, so now I'm going to tighten it down the rest of the way. I'm going to loosen my screw here. So now I've got it locked on. And my drill is nice and square to the center line of the spindle of the chuck. Okay, so right now I'm going to lock the tool holder down. Okay. Another one. This is our Sherline T handle, 5/32. Okay. When you're seeing me tighten these down, this is basically two-finger tightening right here. You can exert up to 600 foot-pounds of torque on a 1032 screw. If you really torque this down, you'll literally either break the T-nuts off or you will raise the surface of the T-slot in the cross slide. So this is really all the tension you need to lock these in place for them to not go anywhere. Okay, basically just two-finger, okay? All right, so right now he's locked down. I'm gonna open up my chuck. I'm gonna move my Z axis out, put it back in continuous. Okay, and I'm going to go to my tool page. I'm going to click on my tool number 5, double click. And right now, at the bottom, it tells me that it's in red, and it says that I'm on a tool that the computer does not recognize as my active tool because I forgot to go into MDI and call it up. So I'm going to hit cancel right now. I'm going to go into MDI, and I'm going to go T5 and 6, so it knows I'm on tool number 5. Now I'm going to go to my tool data page. I'm going to double click on tool number 5 again, and the red warning is off, which means the computer knows that I'm working with tool number 5, and I'm on the tool data page for tool number 5. So again, on the diameter for X is 0. I'm going to click on touch, and then I'm going to click save. One more. These are spot drill and boring bar. For both of your drills, you have a choice of tool on the front side or the back side. It really doesn't matter where you put this for a drill or a center drill or a tap or whatever you might have. It's a center line tool. However, whichever way you have this listed, if I'm on the front, when I tell it to move to a minus direction or a plus direction, it's going to move a different way depending on whether I'm telling it's a front tool or a back tool. So just something to keep in mind. I'm going to click save again. Now what I'm going to do is go to my jog page. I'm going to jog back out of the way. Okay. For these two tools here, all I have to do right now is touch off on the Z and teach Z on the end of my part. For the boring tool, I have to touch Z to tell where the end of the part is, and then I have to touch on my X-axis so that it knows where this cutting tip is. Because right now, my number on my tool page is for center line of the boring bar, not for the cutting edge. I'm going to stick this guy in here. And you can see that my stock is running out a little bit here. I want to run truer. That'll be good enough for right now. Okay, now what I'm going to do is bring each tool in, touch it to the front, and teach the 0. I finished on this tool, it's already in position, so I'm going to touch him off first. So I'm going to bring the Z back in. This blank already has a hole drilled in it, so when I get close, I'm going to move off center line a little bit. And I can either use a shim stock, and move in until I feel it rub. Actually, we'll do that on this one. So this is 2000 shim. My Z-axis is about accurate within 2000s for a hole that's more than fine. And once I get close enough, I'm going to go to step mode. I'm going to leave it at 10,000s per increment, Z minus. Okay. And if you have a hard time seeing the gap, if you put your thumb behind it, with some light on your thumbnail, that will light up the gap between the two, either that or a piece of paper. The thumbnail's handier, and I can move it wherever I want. So right there's 10, that's pretty close. I'm going to go to 1 thou per click. And put my shim stock in here. And as I move it in, I'm going to move the shim stock up and down until I feel it grab. So right in the front, I'm just going to move up and down, start clicking away. Right there, I got a touch. So for my Z-axis for tool number 5, I'm going to go to the tool, double click on that, and I'm going to click on 0 for my Z offset. So 0 right there, save. So now my X number for center line is in, my Z number for the front of the part is in. And I'm going to go back to jog, continuous, move that out of the way. Go to MDI now, and I'm going to call up tool number 4. Okay. 2, 4, count 6, enter. Shows tool 4 on my control page, so I know I'm there. Right now, because I already gave it center line for this tool, what I can do is go to MDI, and it already knows it's tool number 4. I'm going to go G90 for absolute, G0, X 0.0, and this tool should go to center line of the part right now. And it gets me right on center line, so I don't have to guess. I go back to jog, I'm going to jog it in. And because there's a hole there, I'm going to jog off center layers there. So I've got fresh material to go onto. I'm going to go to increment, or step mode rather, 10,000s. Start clicking and stop when I get close. So that's close. I'm going to go to 1,000s increments. a little bit closer than close. Okay, so that guy's good right there. We'll go back to tool post or tool page. Tool number 4, center drill. On the Z-axis, just click 0 and save. So now X and Z are set for both of those tools. Okay, go to jog, continuous, move it out of the way. Okay, all right. For this one, let's see. Normally, if this is stock, what I'll do, if it has a hole in it already, we'll bring the boring bar in, we'll cut and measure the bore. You can also touch your tool to the outside of the part. This part is running out of round pretty bad. Okay, so what I will want to do is square this up first. An easy way to square this up, easier, is to actually use the side of a tool holder. In this case, I'll use the side of the center drill. Okay, maybe I won't. No, that's going to get in the way. Okay, we're not going to touch off on the material. We're going to actually use a 1/4 inch pin. Okay, so I've got a 1/4 inch dowel pin. Move this guy in. Down. Just hand tight there. I'm going to go to MDI. MDI, G9, oh, hold on. It's on tool number 4 right now. So first we're going to go T6, M6 to get it on tool number 6. Okay, then go G90, GO, X0.0. That's got me on center line of the boring bar, or center line of my part. That's just to get me in a general position. Now I'm going to jog it out. I'm trying to touch my cutting edge of the boring tool on the side of my pin, and I just ran out of travel in my x-axis. So I'm going to put a smaller pin in here. So that was a 1/4 inch pin. This one's a 1/8 inch dowel pin. Okay, now we're going to jog in again. I've got clearance there. Okay, now on the tool data page, I'm going to be touching on the back side of this pin with my cutting edge. So on the tool data page for the center drill and the drill, I've got it as a front side cutting tool. For this counter bore, I've got it as a backside cutting tool. So again, I want to make sure that I'm referring to the side that I'm touching on for my cutting edge on the tool data page. Okay, so for right now, in jog mode, I'm going to go into step because I'm really close already. Okay, put my shim stock in here between the dowel pin and the cutting tip of my boring bar. And it's at 1,000 in step mode. Start going in until it rubs. Right there, I've got a rub. So this is a 125 dowel pin. I go to my tool data page. I'm going to see bore. On the diameter, I'm going to punch in 0.125 with the diameter. And I'm going to click on touch. Okay. And now it's set up so that my computer knows where that cutting edge is in relationship to the center line of the part. I go jog. I'm going to step away a couple. And continuous. Jog it out. Okay, so that's how to set it up with a pin. On most parts, it'd be shorter than this and they'd run true. Most of them, when you're doing a boring bar, what you want to do is actually bore the part with the boring bar and teach it according to the bore. Okay. So on this guy, that's running pretty darn true. What I would do is there'd already be a hole pre-drilled in it, which this does have. I'm going to go spindle speed 500. Down. Clockwise. Okay, and that's running pretty decently true right there. Okay, so the next thing I would do is go to jog. You have feed rate override. It's at 100% right now. I'm going to bring it down to 15%. So right now, if I go to 100%, I'm jogging away. That's how fast it's going. If I bring my jog override down to 15%, that's how fast it's going. So I'm going to go down a little slower than that. I'm going to go to 11%, and I'm going to jog in and do a 4, so just Z minus. Jog out. Okay, I'll put it up to 100%. Okay, now I'm going to turn off my spindle, and I'm just going to measure the size of the counter bore that I just did. So the bore is 304. Now I'm going to go to my tooling page, my counter bore. Now, this is important to know. When we touched off on the pin, we had the pin in there, the tool was touching on the back side. So on our page, we have this boring tool described as a backside tool, because that's the side of the part that we're touching on to acquire our zero position. Right now, I'm boring it, so I'm on this side of the center line. So when I'm boring it and I'm getting a tool offset number, it is actually now a front side tool. So before I put my information in here, first I'm going to change this so it's front side. Then I'm going to come over here and I'm going to put in 0.304, and I'm going to click touch. Save. So now my tip right here is defined for X0 and Z0 for center line of this part. So now we're ready to we'll get another piece and we'll actually walk through the program and drill this. This is an additional tip for chewing up your stock. This particular stock has a lip around the end, which makes it run out pretty bad. We're going to leave the lip there, and then we put it back in. In the video, what I did was I got it in there just snug. We have an RPM of 300. If you put it up too fast, you're going to set this thing flying. So you want a nice low RPM for this. Okay, so it's 300,000, so I'm going to turn it on, and you can see how bad it's running out there. Okay, what I did in the video is I stopped it, I spun it to see where the high spot was, and then with our 30-20 T-handle Allen wrench, I tapped it, and it was, turned it on again, and it was running pretty nice and true. And another way to do this is if you have a tool holder, you can bring the tool holder up. I don't have enough travel, but you can bring the tool holder up like the side of this one to the side and start moving it in with the spindle on. Or you can use your 30-20 Allen wrench or something similar to this. Turn the spindle on, okay, and then just bring your Allen wrench up. Right there's running pretty darn true. I'm going to turn it off, and now I'm going to sock it down. Tighten it up good and tight. Once I tighten it good and tight, I'm going to spin it by hand to make sure it looks like it's running true. Turn it on again, and that's pretty darn true right there. So that's just another method of truing up your stock. If you're using something like wood that doesn't have a finished surface to chuck up on, it's going to run out, and this is an easy way to true up your stock. So there's your additional tip for the video.